Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 291. Greta, you ready for a manly discussion?
A manly discussion?
Yes.
Oh.
It's a discussion of men.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, then I guess I am. Yes, absolutely.
Good. In this episode, we will be discussing chapter 12 of the Silmarillion of Men.
Of men.
Yes.
Men.
Yeah, not really great for the search engine. It's not really like any interesting keywords in there. It's just like of men, talking about of men.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe if you put of mice in there.
Oh, well, then it would be a John Steinbeck podcast.
That's why it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
All right. Before we get started, we'd like to give a double up air 5 to our patrons. Get them up there. You've been duly warned. 3, 2, 1.
Whoopshed.
Boom.
That was awesome.
Special thanks to this episode's executive producers, John R., Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien, and Jacob Lockham. And a shout out to our newest patron, Michael W., who made an annual pledge.
Nice. Michael, thanks, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your generous pledge. And just as we appreciate all of our patrons.
Absolutely.
And their generous pledging.
For sure.
So welcome to their ranks. The ranks of the generous. All right. Hey, you too can become a extremely good looking, generous patron by visiting patreon.com/TolkienRoad. Was that too patronizing? I'm patronizing our patrons, right? Doing so gets you cool perks like 20% off of everything at truemisspress.com. Plus, your financial support helps the Tolkien Road to keep on evering on. Learn more at patreon.com/TolkienRoad.
Yeah.
Do it. Hey, YouTube, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what's on your mind in the comments below. Also, drop us 5 stars if you're a fan of the Tolkien Road on iTunes or wherever it is you listen to podcasts, right? Give us that high rating and tell the world why you love us, right? We love reading those things on air. So your comments on air, so makes us feel all special and warm and fuzzy inside. So, all right. Hey, live stream. So sorry about April. We've had a whole lot going on for the last month, and every time we tried to get something on the schedule, something came up. And we thought we had it ready to go at last night, which was, so that would have been May 5th. The evening of May 5th was, all right, we're going to do it May 5th. And we just had too much going on and couldn't make it happen. So we do apologize. Thank you all for understanding. Hopefully we'll be able to do an extra long live stream towards the end of May.
Yeah.
So,
and we just want to make sure that we're always giving you guys our best. And sometimes we just don't have it. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to jip you guys. So we appreciate you understanding. And we look forward to doing a marathon, maybe, should we say? A marathon live stream in May. May marathon.
It's going to be literally 26.2 hours. 26.2 hours.
I meant it more figuratively.
Oh, like in terms of how long it takes you to run a marathon. I got you. So like 4 hours.
I don't know. Could I do a marathon in 4 hours?
Probably neither one of us could do a marathon at all. So I know you might be able to pull one off. I definitely could not do a whole marathon at this point right now. Maybe if I trained for a long time.
Yeah.
You run a lot though. So
I do. I don't run super long distances though. So
just to punish ourselves, I will be here on the live stream and Greta will be live streaming separately while she runs a marathon.
I run a marathon.
There you go.
Oh, that's fun. Or we could just live stream while I run. It doesn't have to be a marathon.
Anyway, I like the marathon. I like the marathon idea. It was your suggestion. I'm just saying.
It's true. I'm the one that brought it up.
All right. Enough of that nonsense. We'll make it up to you guys. It's just really busy for us right now. Hopefully that's going to be all over, here in the next few weeks. The big things that have got us extra busy right now are going to be kind of smooth, steady state in a few weeks, and we'll be able to do a nice longer one at the end of May. So Thank you for understanding.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Tolkien quote of the week, Silmarillion chapter 12, which would be the chapter that we are currently in. To Hildórien there came no Vala to guide men or to summon them to dwell in Valinor. And men have feared the Valar rather than loved them, and have not understood the purpose of the powers, being at variance with them and at strife with the world. So, yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was a interesting little thought that the Vala did not really aid men when they awoken as they did the elves. So
yeah, definitely some preferential treatment going on, I would say. And the men in return really didn't have much love for the Valar.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, more fear, and
fear.
Well, to some degree, I feel like that's what happened with elves initially until the Valar showed up, right? The Melkor kind of like convinced them that they should fear the Valar, right?
Yeah. That's
anyway,
true.
We'll talk more about this shortly.
Okay.
Well, let's dive into chapter 12. So with the sun having risen upon Middle Earth for the first time, we finally meet the younger children of Ilúvatar, men. In chapter 12, we'll learn about the awakening of men, discover the various names given to men by the Eldar, explore the relationship between men and the Valar, and much more. And as with each episode, we won't be covering every detail of this chapter, but instead doing our best to hit the high points and unpack interesting and important details. If we missed something you guys want to discuss more, let us know. So, timeline, where are we on the timeline of the Middle Earth history? So, using the War of the Jewels here, which is the 11th volume of the History of Middle Earth series, this particular chapter really is dated to Year of the Sun 1, which is Year of the Trees 1500. So, as we will learn shortly, this is the moment at which Middle Earth history is broken off from counting in terms of the years of the trees to the years of the sun, right? So we kind of begin a new timeline. It's almost like a BC AD thing, okay? Except it's not like counting down BC to AD. It's like just one group of years of numbering sequences, and then it starts a new one. So this is Year of the Trees 1500 / Year of the Sun 1. So there you go.
All right, good deal.
Yeah. All right. So
wait, so Year of the Sun 1, that's what marks the coming of men?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's read a little bit from the opening here about the second spring of Arda. So Greta, would you like to read this highlighted paragraph?
I would be delighted. From this time forth were reckoned the years of the sun. Swifter and briefer are they than the long years of the trees in Valinor. In that time, the air of Middle Earth became heavy with the breath of growth and mortality, and the changing and aging of all things was hastened exceedingly. Life teemed upon the soil and in the waters in the second spring of Arda, and the Eldar increased, and beneath the new sun, Beleriand grew green and fair.
Yeah, so the second spring of Arda, the Eldar increased, but as do really all things, right? And the growth and mortality increase as well, right? So, and that's all with the coming of the sun, upon Middle Earth. So, and these years are, as you probably picked up on by now, the years of the sun are quicker, right, than the years of the trees. So 1 year of the sun, 1 year of the trees is equivalent to 10 years of the sun. So a year of the sun is 1/10 roughly of a year of the trees. So, so with this rising of the sun, we meet men, and it says that they awaken in kind of the far east, the eastward regions of Middle Earth, in a land called Hildórien, right? So I was thinking about this name, and it turns out, well, Hildórien probably just means the land of the followers, right? So because it says just short after this, we're going to get to the names here, but it says that men were one of their names given to them by the Eldar were the Hildor, right? The followers. And this is Hildórien, right? So land of the followers. Yeah. It's in the Far East. And of course, initially, they experienced the sun rising in the west, right? We talked about that last chapter, this phenomenon of the sun rising in the west initially. And so they're drawn westward initially towards, really towards Valinor. Okay. And they wander over the earth, for some period of time. Now, as far as their names go, I'm going to read this one, Greta, because I know you struggle with the namings.
Yes.
As do I. I'm not great at it, but I know you're always like,
I'm
John,
very
help me out.
self-conscious about mispronunciations.
Well, whenever you're going up against Tolkien, and his words, his special words, you're always a little like, I get self-conscious too, right?
Yeah.
But I'll read this. All right. So what were some of the names and what do they mean? The Atani, they were named by the Eldar, the second people, but they called them also Hildor, the followers, and many other names. Apanonar, the afterborn, Ingwar, the sickly, and Firimar, the mortals. And they named them the usurpers, the strangers, and the inscrutable, the self-cursed, the heavy-handed, the night-fearers, the children of the sun. So it strikes me that most of these names are not really like very friendly names.
They're not complimentary.
Yeah, they're not complimentary. They're kind of derogatory. So,
they are. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. I know when I was reading this the first time, I was like, oh, not a whole lot of love lost between these two races here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like they're highlighting all the ways in which men are different and maybe even inferior to the elves, right? Like they're followers, not leaders, right? They're the second, not the first. They are sick, right? They're mortal. Elves are immortal.
Yeah.
Usurpers, stranger. I mean, it's really the self-curse. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any. The only one that's maybe mildly positive would be Children of the Sun.
Yeah, I was gonna say Children of the Sun has a nice ring to it, but then again, in the mouths of the elves, it might not be so positive because the sun is a pretty new thing to them, right?
And they've kind of prefer the moonlight.
Well, and they're calling them the night fearers. It's like, well, why are you so afraid of the night? Like, because the elves, are like, well, we like the night.
Right, exactly. It's like they want to make it extremely obvious that these people are different than them. Like they really want to not have any association or be confused with them at any.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So yeah, we've got a lot of different names for them. The most common one we're going to find is just the Atani, right? That's the one that we'll see the most often repeated. And I believe that when we get later on, that names like the Edain, right, are somewhat derivative of Atani, right? So, and that's not, I mean, they were technically the second people, right? They, it's not necessarily now, again, if that becomes a classism thing or like a, pecking order kind of thing, that can be a problem. But in one sense they are like, it's like, just one generation comes after the other. One group of people came after the other group of people, right? So they were the second people in that sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we definitely detect, I think the takeaway here is we detect a very strong theme of elves tending to look down upon men, right? In general, it's not always true, but in general.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, what of this that we alluded to earlier, this issue of the men and the Valar and how they relate to one another. So what's going on here? Greta, maybe you can give this paragraph, this passage here, read for us.
Sure. The Hildórien there came.
No, two.
Oh, yeah. I already messed it up.
That word is pronounced two.
I was skimming it to see if there are any crazy words, and then I just messed up the very first easy one. Okay.
You're like, John, help me out. From the very first.
Oh, man. Okay, try this again. To Hildórien there came no Vala to guide men or to summon them to dwell in Valinor, and men have feared the Valar rather than loved them, and have not understood the purposes of the powers, being at variance with them and at strife with the world. Ulmo nonetheless took thought for them, aiding the counsel and will of Manwë, and his messages came often to them by stream and flood. But they have not skill in such matters, and still less had they in those days before they had mingled with the elves. Therefore they loved the waters, and their hearts were stirred, but they understood not the messages. Yet it is told that ere long they met dark elves in many places and were befriended by them, and men became the companions and disciples in their childhood of these ancient folk, wanderers of the elven race, who never set out upon the paths to Valinor, and knew of the Valar only as a rumor and a distant name.
Yeah. So once again, as we read in that opening quote, they Valar really never came to men to guide them as they did with the elves, and that's resulted in this distrust, this fear of the Valar on behalf of most men. Of course, who is it of the Valar that really has a heart for them? It's Ulmo, good old Ulmo, right? And I really love this idea. Well, and I should say this: we got to give a little credit to Manwë because it says that Ulmo was aiding the counsel and will of Manwë. So they were sending messages to them, but it says it came by stream and flood.
Yeah.
And they weren't really capable of understanding these messages.
I don't know that I would understand messages sent by stream and flood. Would you?
No, okay. I wouldn't. Especially if it was flood, because I'd be like, what's up with all the flooding?
Right.
That's not very nice.
We've been through one major flood here in Nashville, 2010. And we didn't get hit nearly as hard as a lot of other people, but even the little bit of damage we did suffer, it was kind of like, what's up with this?
Yeah.
It's not cool.
Not cool.
Not cool.
Not cool. So nevertheless, I really like this idea that Ulmo was trying to communicate with them, right? And because I feel like that, and I think we see this theme throughout in different parts of the Silmarillion too, but I feel like the theme, I feel whenever I'm close to like a body of water or something like that, there's a certain peace that comes over you, like when you're on the shores of the sea or something like that. Like, it's a peace, it's a peaceful place to be. It puts you in a different mindset. It does make you feel, and this is really just kind of an ambiguous thing to say, but it just makes me feel more spiritual when I'm close to the sea, right? And even close to just a body of water, you go out into nature close to a river or something like that.
There's something very aesthetic about it too.
Yeah. Something that just makes you feel fills you with a little more peace than maybe not being close to the water does. So I think I think Tolkien's maybe latching on to that idea. And we're going to see that Ulmo does communicate. He continues to communicate to all of the children of Ilúvatar through the waters, right? So anyway, it's not very well defined here, but I really like the idea that this portrays, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's interesting too that that they mentioned, even though they didn't understand these messages, their hearts were stirred. Like they had great love for the water, even though they couldn't quite understand that there were messages in it, maybe.
Yeah.
So there was, even if they couldn't understand maybe the purpose, there was still something about them that really kind of spoke to them. And we also hear about the dark elves here too.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. Thanks for bringing it up.
Sure.
So the dark elves, what were you gonna say about the dark elves?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I know we talked about them briefly before. I think maybe when we were talking about the sundering of the elves, or so it's just nice that we're reminded that they exist.
Yeah.
And that this was a part of the elven race that befriended the men.
Yeah, so there is a sense of friendship that develops early on, and they teach men what it is that kind of share some things with them, right? That some of the other elves who are the Calaquendi versus the Morroquendi, right? The Calaquendi would have had the most of all the light, but the Morroquendi, they had some experience with the Valar themselves. They made a choice not to go towards Valinor, but they nevertheless have been living a long time, and so they're able to teach men some things and to offer them some friendship. Right.
Yep.
Now, fortunately, Morgoth, because of the sun, is held at bay, and he's not able to maybe come down as hard on the Atani, on men, as he would like to. I'm going to go ahead and read this first paragraph here. Morgoth had then not long come back into Middle-earth, and his power went not far abroad, and was moreover checked by the sudden coming of great light. There was little peril in the lands and hills, and there new things, devised long ages before in the thought of Yavanna, and sown as seed in the dark, came at last to their budding and their bloom. West, north, and south, the children of men spread and wandered, and their joy was the joy of the morning before the dew is dry, when every leaf is green. But the dawn is brief, and the day full often belies its promise. And now the time drew on to the great wars of the powers of the north, when Noldor and Sindar and men strove against the hosts of Morgoth Bauglir, and went down in ruin. To this end, the cunning lies of Morgoth that he sowed of old, and sowed ever anew among his foes, and the curse that came of the slaying at Alqualande and the oath of Feanor were ever at work. So just that kind of foreshadows the rest of what we're going to learn about in the Silmarillion, and these great wars of the North. I really, really just love this line here. But the dawn is brief, and the day full often belies its promise. Right. It kind of goes with the paragraph before, end of paragraph before. Their joy was the joy of the morning before the dew is dry, when every leaf is green, but the dawn is brief, and the day full often belies its promise. I feel like that's every day of my life.
I think probably most people feel that way.
I feel like I get up every morning and I'm like, all this time, and it just, life feels good. Yep. And then by about noontime, you're just like, nothing good is happening. Like,
or you're like, where did the last 6 hours go?
I know.
What have I accomplished?
I know. Well, it's all of those things, right?
Yeah.
And Tolkien, of course, puts it much more poetically here, right?
Absolutely.
The dawn is brief, and the day full often belies its promise. Day is such a liar.
Tricksy days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Very tricksy.
Very, very tricksy.
Yeah, but at the very least, the sun holding Morgoth at bay and kind of causing him to go underground for a while gives men the opportunity to spread and to grow. Now, I will say that as I do the math on like generations, it has me thinking, like, so were there already a lot of men in the year of the Sun 1? Because I feel like they kind of come into, I'm not sure exactly when they come into the picture in terms of the timeline, because I haven't gotten there yet, but I feel like it's only a couple of 100 years. And so I'm like, how many men could there have been by then, right? Unless there was already like a lot that existed and they all woke together, right? So that's an interesting question in and of itself. And I'm not sure if Tolkien addresses that anywhere. I can't remember if maybe there's something of that in the nature of Middle Earth. But I do think that's an interesting question. I'm just not equipped to answer it right now. Do you understand my conundrum, or what I'm wondering about there, Greta?
Not exactly.
I'm just saying, like, okay, if there's just a mother and a father to begin in the year of the Sun 1, how do you get is like a lot of people in a couple of 100 years, right? Like talking in the thousands or really probably more likely in the hundreds of thousands. How do we know there are a lot? Well, it just seems like there are, because when we get into later chapters in the Silmarillion, it seems like there's lots of men fighting, right? And there's not only lots of men helping the Eldar, but there's lots of more men fighting against them, right? So, it just makes me think, it just makes me wonder about that. But it's probably not entirely relevant to this. It is something, though, that I feel like Tolkien himself would have struggled with his own mythology, trying to think about, how does this all add up, right? Could it be that, anyway, I don't know, it's kind of a rabbit trail, but just something I wanted to mention head on, instead of just being like, well, this problem doesn't actually exist. But maybe, because you think about it, like, let's just make one generation of men like 20 years. Okay, so it takes 20 years for a man and a woman to produce offspring, right?
Okay.
And in that time, let's say they have, and they're, so you kind of do the generational math, and is that time enough for there to be thousands and thousands of men upon
I see what you're
the
saying.
face of Middle Earth?
Yeah,
right?
No, I see what you're
saying. In the face of a couple of hundreds of years, which would have been maybe in that scheme, like I don't know, 10 generations or something like that, maybe 15 generations. I don't know.
So I understand that question now. That's a good one. I wonder if, like, the coming of men, like how does it compare to the coming of the elves? Like, they all just kind of started in a big group, right?
Well, they did actually. In the nature of Middle Earth, there's a lot written about the elves and how they came to be, right? Tolkien actually like wrote a ton about that. That's like early on in the book, and it's really, really interesting stuff. So But I don't know that he does the same thing with men.
Okay.
I don't know that he does he does the same kinds of tables with men. But he definitely does those calculations with elves. And he's very specific about it, right? So it's kind of interesting.
Maybe Tolkien favored the elves as well.
Well, let's be honest, he probably did. He knew too many men, right? He was like, men suck. I'm gonna write books about immortal beings that are a lot cooler and stronger and live a lot longer.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if we had to choose, we'd be elves.
He's like, men suck. I know because I am one. All right. So, all right. Any other thoughts on that passage, Greta?
No. I think we covered it well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the stature of men and elves, right? Like how they're physically characterized in comparison to one another.
Okay.
Greta, would you like to read this blue paragraph right here?
Yes. Immortal were the elves, and their wisdom waxed from age to age, and no sickness nor pestilence brought death to them. Their bodies indeed were of the stuff of earth and could be destroyed, and in those days they were more like to the bodies of men, since they had not so long been inhabited by the fire of their spirit, which consumes them from within in the courses of time. But men were more frail, more easily slain by weapon or mischance, and less easily healed, subject to sickness and many ills, and they grew old and died. What may befall their spirits after death, the elves know not. Some say that they too go to the halls of Mondos, but their place of waiting there is not that of the elves, and Mondos under Ilúvatar alone, save Manwë, knows whither they go after the time of recollection in those silent halls beside the outer sea. None have ever come back from the mansions of the dead, save only Beren, son of Barahir, whose hand had touched the Silmarillion, but he never spoke afterward to mortal men. The fate of men after death, maybe, is not in the hands of the Valar, nor was all foretold in the music of the Ainur.
Yes. All right. Interesting paragraph.
Indeed.
Accompanied by the shrieks of birds in the background.
I was wondering, I was like, is my microphone making weird noises when I speak, or no?
No, those were the birds. The birds in our yard here, calling to John Rice. So
saying hello.
Hello, friend of birds. Yeah. So I got my door open while we're recording. That's why you may be able to hear those birds in the background. I
think it's totally fitting and appropriate for a Tolkien podcast.
Perfect. That's kind of why I do it. So awesome. Like, what interesting natural sounds are we going to hear in the background? So what do we want to highlight here? First thing that I find really interesting is how Tolkien sort of describes the fating of the elves, right? That there's this idea that even now the elves were still young in the grand scheme of their lifespan, which is immortality. It should be immortality, which is really to say it's the lifespan of the earth, right? It's the lifespan of Arda itself, even though they can die if they're slain. But they do fade over time, right? Because of the fire of their spirit, right? It consumes them from within in the course of time. And that's why, I guess, according to the Tolkienian mythology here, that elves, they still exist, right? In the scheme, like if you're thinking in terms of like how Tolkien views the world here, right? And viewing Middle Earth as kind of a mythological prehistory of our world, right? That these elves still exist as fairies, but they're like these fated spirits now, right? They're these like they're so fated that they almost like don't have bodies anymore, right? But they're just kind of these like spirits that exist out there, right? Because their bodies have been consumed by the fire of their spirit, right?
Yep.
So it's an interesting little thought there. But men are more frail. They're more easily slain by weapon or mischance and less easily healed. Ain't that the truth? And subject to many sickness and many ills, and they grow old and die. But ultimately, men are this mystery. They don't know what happens to men. The elves don't know. They wonder if maybe they go to a separate part of the halls of Mondos. But it's not really known. The fate of men is just simply not known. And it was not foretold in the music of the Ainur. So yeah.
And it's not in the hands of the Valar either, so they don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I want to give a quick shout out here to Beren.
Yeah.
I love Beren.
Oh yeah. Well, what's not to love?
What's not to love?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just interesting that they mention him as he's the only one that has ever come back from the mansions of the dead.
Yes.
And we'll hear more of Beren's story in a few chapters.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, it's just cool that they mentioned that, or that Tolkien mentioned that. And that he mentions the Silmaril too. Do you think that has something to do with why he came back from the mansions of the dead, or is that just like a fun fact that he threw in there?
Well, in the sense of, did the Silmaril have some way of like it power within itself,
right? To like kind of, I mean, I know why. Like, I know why he came back from the halls of Mondos. Like, I know the story.
I think that's just I think that's just the way they just like, it's like notable, right? You know, it's like what it's almost like a you know, Beren, who did this great deed, right? Son of Barahir, who did this, you know, who was alone among mortals, yes, right? And touching a Silmaril, right? And holding a Silmaril, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That it's just kind of this legendary way of referring to somebody, right? Of renown, right? And the reason for his renown. I don't think that's we'll talk about it again, obviously, when we get to the story, but I don't think that's the reason he came back from the dead. I think this chapter again, you know, it's not really the only kind of thing it does to advance the plot is just tell us that men awaken in this first year of the sun. But it kind of provides some background before we jump into, you know, like there's this dividing line in the Silmarillion, right? It's the first half is all about what happens in the Blessed Realm among the Valar and eventually with the Eldar. An event in the big catastrophe there is the destruction of the two trees. And then we have the Noldor fleeing, you know, chasing Morgoth to Beleriand. And then the second half of the Silmarillion is going to be all about the wars against Morgoth, right? The wars against Morgoth back in Beleriand, right? And this is some stage setting for that. Okay. It's, you know, it's a little bit of foreshadowing and just kind of giving us an idea of where men came from. And they're actually not going to come into the picture even for a couple more chapters in terms of the actual story arc. So, yeah. All right, Greta, would you like to, oh no, you read the last one.
Yeah, I read the last one.
All right.
It's all you.
Last paragraph here. And this is of the relationship of men and elves. In after days, when because of the triumph of Morgoth, elves and men became estranged, as he most wished, those of the elven race that lived still in Middle-earth waned and faded, and men usurped the sunlight. Then the Quindi wandered in the lonely places of the great lands and the isles, and took to the moonlight and the starlight, and to the woods and caves, becoming as shadows and memories, save those who ever and anon set sail into the west and vanished from Middle-earth. But in the dawn of years, elves and men were allies and held themselves akin. And there were some among men that learned the wisdom of the Eldar and became great and valiant among the captains of the Noldor. And in the glory and beauty of the elves, and in their fate, full share had the offspring of elf and mortal, Eärendil, and Elwing, and Elrond, their child. And Elros, just mentioning,
yeah, but Elrond is definitely better.
Well, yeah, I guess I should say that he didn't have the share because he chose different path.
Right,
anyway.
Exactly.
So I stand corrected.
But they still were twins, right? Or were they just brothers?
I believe they were twins.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just brothers, though. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to, just say that, once again, reiterate this idea that like kind of now the elves that have remained behind in our midst are faded, and we almost are like imperceptible, which I really love this idea, because I think this is Tolkien's way of explaining just all these, like, the weird phenomena we might feel in different, kind of different places and that kind of thing. Right. Like, there's some other presence here, for good or for ill. Right. This is one way of explaining that, like kind of the, and you think about like kind of lore of ancient England, of England going back a long time, and just kind of these ideas of like various fairies like inhabiting the woods and that kind of thing. Like, what are these creatures? Well, Tolkien's idea here is that they're just these beings that once were like men, but now they've kind of faded, right? And unless they traveled back to, the Blessed Realm, they've faded, and they just kind of exist as these shadowy beings in our, in our midst. But once upon a time, the best of men and the best of elves fought together hand in hand against the Dark Lord, right? And that's really what we're going to learn about in the rest of the Silmarillion. That's what these last 12 chapters from chapter 13 to chapter 24 are really concerned with, are the great legends of men and elves fighting against Morgoth for the sake of the freedom of Balerion and of trying somehow to get those Silmarils from him, right? So yeah,
I'm wondering how much of this fading has to do with the fact that elves and men became estranged. Like, I kind of wonder if they had remained friends and allies, if that would have somehow, I don't know, not necessarily prevented, but maybe just maybe the estrangement hastened the waning of the elves. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good question. I feel like the elves were meant, they were, in being the firstborn, they were meant, much like the Valar like came first, and they were there to help the Eldar awaken and kind of reach their full potential. I feel like the Eldar came first in order to help men awaken and reach their full potential, right? And there was varying success and failure in both of those cases, right? The Valar obviously weren't successful with all of the elves, and the Eldar were not successful with all men, right? But with some they were. With some they were. So
it's almost like a passing of the baton or the torch in a way.
I do feel like that, and I feel like the Eldar were meant to lay the groundwork, and I think this also, Tolkien doesn't address it directly in this chapter, but I do think this is showing us again that sense that this is a story that all of Middle Earth is kind of this exploration of like mortality and what it means as men that we're mortal, even though we have this seeming immortal spark within each one of us, right? That there is this hunger and ache and thirst for immortality within each one of us as men. Why is that there, right? What are we made for? And my working thesis in it all is just that Tolkien was exploring that through all of these stories. And so do with that what you will.
Yeah. Good
well
stuff.
This is a short chapter,
indeed,
and that's about all I have to say about that.
All righty.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, do you want to do some haiku here, Greg?
Yeah, let's do some haiku.
All right, here we go.
You ready?
Darn it. Misfire.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, dang it.
Got it.
All right.
You go first.
Me go first. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. All right. Children of the sun, friends of dark elves, not Valar, mysterious men.
Nice.
Thanks.
I like it. Mine's kind of like that.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
All right. Atani, sunborn, fearers of night, yet its foe. Star people give way.
Nice. Star people. People of the stars versus people of the sun.
Yes.
Cool. I like it. Good stuff.
Hey, if you want your haiku read on a future episode, let us know. And I forgot to collect these, but I do at least have one haiku, I believe.
Oh.
Let me check this out. I got one from Red Hawk.
Oh,
good old Red Hawk.
I was gonna say, I think he's the one that's been the most faithful.
I might have a couple here. Let me see
haiku.
Here. All right. He's staying a little ahead of the game here. Here we go. Chapter 12 haiku from Red Hawk. Children of the morn, awake with the rising sun. Man meet the firstborn.
Good.
Nice.
That's good.
Excellent.
Indeed.
Excellent. Let
me good.
Let me look at my email here and see if we got any others.
Just, do you want me to like sing?
Yes. Why aren't you singing already?
What should I sing? Well, no, I don't want us to get copyrighted. I was thinking about singing Starman by Bowie.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I got it here.
Okay.
I don't want this to turn into a Blue by Chanel commercial or whatever. So
yeah, that was an
Blue de
unfortunate.
Chanel.
That was a yeah.
All right. I think that might be our only one for this chapter. I feel like I may have another one, but I didn't do a good job. Y'all, like I said, it's been busy. So if I failed to read someone else's haiku on this episode, I do apologize. Yeah. Oh, wait, here we go. Here we go. All right. This is from Samuel P. Enough David Bowie.
Okay.
All right. So from Samuel P.
Nice.
Men of the first age, the Hildor, frail, lost, deceived. Nomads leave their home.
Oh,
nice.
Good stuff.
And Samuel says the deceived part comes from Athrabeth Finrod Andreth in Morgoth's Ring, where Andreth is telling King Finrod of the dark past of men, how they were deceived and led astray by Morgoth in their prehistory. So there you go, which I cannot wait to discuss that. That is going to be a very interesting work to discuss, especially after we finish the Silmarillion, this time. So yeah, we'll probably get to that. I expect to get to that later this year. That's been a long one coming, but it is definitely on the short list of things to get to soon. Rather than
Morgoth's Ring.
Athrabeth Finrod Andreth, right? The dialogue of Finrod and
yes, in Morgoth's
Andreth.
Ring.
Yes.
Gotcha. So there's that part of Morgoth's Ring.
Yeah,
gotcha.
There's other parts of Morgoth's Ring that we'll probably discuss as well.
Okay. Cool beans.
Yeesh. All right. Well, good job on the haiku, everybody. Subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes or the platform of your choice. If you are a 5-star fan of the Tolkien Road, you can really help us out by heading over to iTunes or your preferred source for the show and dropping us a rating and review. When you do that, it helps get the word out about the Tolkien Road, which helps us to keep on evering on. And drop us a line wherever you can find us. All the places you know how to find them. All right. We'll let you know about our next live stream whenever we get that all figured out. But again, thanks for your understanding. And we really enjoy those. Bummed we couldn't do it in April.
For sure.
But we're looking forward to the next one whenever it does happen. All right. That's all for this episode, everybody. Thank you to our amazing patrons, especially the following: John R.,
Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien,
Jacob Lockham,
Ms. Anonymous,
Andrew T.,
Red Hawk,
Shannon S.,
Brian O.,
Emilio P.,
Zeke F.,
James A.,
James L.,
Chris L.,
Chuck F.,
Azia V.,
Ish of the Hammer,
Teresa C.,
David of Pints with Jack,
Jonathan D.,
Eric S.,
Eric B.,
Johanna T.,
Mike M.,
Robert H.,
Paul D.,
Julia,
Werty,
Matthew W.,
Joe Bagelman,
Chris K.,
Jacob S.,
and Don J.,
as well as those celebrating their Patreon anniversary this month in May of 2022, Malcolm C.,
and Ms. Anonymous.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
We really appreciate y'all, and we will talk at you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.